Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper. It is 27th January 2016. The saga of Arunachal Pradesh is continuing. Let's recollect what has happened. Few of the rebels from the Congress party, they joined hands with the BJP, and finally the Chief Minister Nabam Tuki's government has lost the majority. But this majority is not tested on the floor of the House. And for that purpose, the Council of Ministers did not advise the governor to take up to a session of the legislature. In this context, governor has ordered for a session of the legislature and also asked for taking a motion related to the no confidence and removal of the speaker on the floor of the House. So in this context, the first legal question is, does the governor of a state has the power to order for a session of a legislature? And in that session, can he declare what is the business that has to be taken up? What is the motions it has to take up? So this is under sub judice before the Supreme Court now. Now, as per the Constitution, between any two legislative sessions, the governor has to ensure a period of not more than 6 months. So as 6 months has lapsed, now law and order situation is worsening. It being a sensitive border state, the center has recommended for the president's rule, and the President Pranab Mukherjee has given a go-ahead for the president's rule. Now this president's rule has to be introduced in the parliament, and the parliament has to give approval for this. And both the houses, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, has to give the approval for this. So we reclines too. Now coming to Joya Hassan's article, now it is related to the development of anti-establishment politics in India, or something kind of this way. The BJP has established a faction now with regard to the center and many of the states. And the BJP's presence is confined to the north and western states in India. Its presence in the east and south is relatively very less. In this context, a strong opposition has to come from the state-centric coalition partners. So in this context, at the national level, Congress still appears to be only the formidable challenge to the BJP. So, Congress, by developing its state-specific ties, and it can consolidate the opposition votes. This consolidation of the opposition votes in the first past the post system, it is existing from the Janata days to today. So, this particular experiment can be taken forward, and the major challenge is the Congress and left alliance, because in few states already they are the opposition, and few states they can function as friends. If you take Kerala, the major opposition to the Congress is left, and similarly in West Bengal, if they want to form a coalition, when the elections are at the same time for both West Bengal and Tripura, probably it sends the wrong signals to the cadres. So this is where the challenge is. And again, the Congress has moved away from the center-left politics, and it is more stressing on neoliberal economic line. In this context, the left has specific objections to follow the capital-intensive, globalized neoliberal model of market economy. Now let's get into the caste dominance. So with regard to this National Institute of Biomedical Genomics, in West Bengal, it has conducted a test, or it has did certain gene studies. Based on the genes, it is able to identify or differentiate elite groups in the society from the non-elite groups. And it was able to establish when the caste was penetrated into the Indian society. So in this context, it has did the studies of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Jarawa, Ongwe tribes, etc., and concluded that most of these people are caste. It has started around 1500 years in the case of the North India, 1100 years during the West, during the Chalukyas and Rashtrakutas in the West, and finally in the case of the East, it is around 1200 years during Pala dynasty. It was able to genetically prove when the caste has a significant presence in the various order of the states. Now, with regard to improving the statistical information, as of now the government is taking the statistical data related to employment through sample surveys conducted by National Sample Survey Organization once in 5 years. So we are unable to uh, provide for a policy direction due to lack of sufficient information at the right time. So now, instead of providing for the information once in 5 years, we are making the information available annually, which will be divided into various quarters through use of the latest technology. So this can be online with the Western countries, and it also can provide for interim policy direction towards the decision making in the government. Next, artificial intelligence. Marvin Minsky did. So Marvin Minsky is an Turing Award winner, which Turing Award is the highest award in the computer sciences, and also who has laid the foundations for the internet and artificial intelligence, has passed away. Next, consolidating ties with the France. Now, unlike the other countries where in superpowers such as United States, Russia, where India's ties get the huge media and public attention, the ties with the France on the defense, space, on terrorism, all these are much better and stronger, and that stood the test of the time. So, India is the first country, or India's first strategic partnership with any superpower was with France. It's way back in 1998 first signed. Now it has paved the way for an agreement on terrorism information sharing, cooperation in investigation and judicial process. And added to that, the space technology, we have an immense cooperation from each other. So in most of the Indian satellites are launched from the French Guiana. And the third thing with regard to the defense, so the Rafale, that's what is the dominated thing. But in 1952 itself, Dassault Aviation, it has supplied the aeroplanes to us, fighter planes to us. Coming to other strategic interests of India, UN Security Council reform, are India entering into the multiple supplier group agreements. The France is a strong supporter of India. And with regard to the nuclear agreements, if you can see, America, though promised the enrichment and reprocessing technologies, that is ENR technologies, which is very critical for our nuclear self-sufficiency, it stepped back at a later time. But France, it has agreed to supply this ENR technology. ENR technology means once a nuclear waste is there, we can reprocess that, from that we can derive certain a nuclear material. And this process is very much necessary for India's three-stage nuclear cycle. So the France is the country which agreed to supply for this. So it shows that in India, the France and India relationships much stronger than they are projected. But one area where we can see this is with regard to the trade. It stands just at $8 billion, much less than the India-US, India-China and India-Germany trade. The reason is the stalling of the India-European Union Free Trade Agreement. So, there has to be a strong steps which have to be taken for taking forward of this free trade agreement to strengthen the economic ties too. And Maldives. So recently the former president of the Maldives, Mr. Nasheed in London, he has stated that in Maldives there is a pro-China tilt. So the present president, he has assured that Mr. Abdullah Amin, he has assured that India is the major partner or important strategic partner for the Maldives, and the China is more, engaging with, and strategic projects of the China are coming in Maldives. So India has got a security concern in these issues, and China sees Maldives as an important point with regard to its One Belt One Road initiative and this maritime Silk Road. So in this context, the tilt towards China is seen with suspicion by India, and this is what is happening now. Coming to the new constitutional making of Sri Lanka. So let us observe the history of the Sri Lanka. Over 4 constitutions of Sri Lanka, the presidential powers have increased, there is centralization and unitary formation of the government. So it means the federal form and devolution to the provinces, it has been replaced finally by a strong centralized unitary government in Sri Lanka, which has worsened the situation. So in this context, reduction of the presidential powers, going through the parliamentary form of government, and also proportional representation in the upper house, and finally giving adequate powers to the provinces, and the center has to be restricted not to take away these powers of the provinces, and finally providing for an amendment process that is very tough. All these things are in the lineup with regard to the new constitutional process in Sri Lanka. And coming to the GST, so GST is an important tax reform India is looking at in the past decade. Or I can say from independence, it is going to be one big tax reform in the country. So, but however, it is not up to the expected standards. If you see, uniformity of taxation throughout the country is the objective of the GST. So initially we thought about two levels of GST. Now we have three levels of GST. Initially we had the dispute resolution mechanism or dispute settlement authority. Now we have GST council that has to make decisions with consensus. And this GST council, the center has 1/3 power and the states have 2/3 powers. And this council, it has got all the states with equal powers. So in this context, to what extent this council can effectively function is a problem. GST is a destination-based tax. So in this case, certain manufacturing states such as Gujarat and Maharashtra may lose initially. Bihar kind of states which are mostly importing the goods from other places, they may gain. So in this process, the government agreed for a special GST or levies in the case of the manufactured states such as Gujarat and Maharashtra. And finally, GST, the constitutional power to tax, will be there with the states on par with the center. And also instead of providing one tax, here a band of taxes will be provided for. So within that band, the state can provide for its own tax. It means finally the uniformity as a target, it is not being achieved. We are also talking about preparedness and online compliance. So now, this GST has to go to the bottom. At every level, there has to be thorough computerization. If not, the small business will get worse affected because these businesses have to supply the goods and services to the well-established MNCs. In this, MNCs tries to get their goods from a company that has a well-establishment to maintain these GST-related documentation. So in this context, to the bottom level, there has to be a proper computerization for the well implementation of the GST. So this preparedness also has to be taken into consideration. So these are the important articles for the day. Thank you very much. All the best.